Hello, YouTube family. It has been a while. How have you been? Before I roll into today's video, I just wanted to invite you over to Facebook or Instagram if you are on those platforms, because I spend so much more of my time and energy over there. So if you have been missing me or my videos or my teaching, please head over there. I will put the links below. I would love to connect with you over there because I'm more active, but I'm really excited to have another video for you to devour. I hope you find it really helpful. Hello, this is a video for those of you who identify as a perfectionist or a recovering perfectionist, or if you notice that you get a little bit obsessive over hitting the right note at the exact right time in the exact right way, and that is more often than not what goes through your head during a performance. And your body can go into this full meltdown mode if you forget a lyric. So, hi, you are well and truly not alone, and in fact, you're in phenomenal company. And that's why I wanted to speak a little to you about how perfectionism can actually derail your technique and what it robs from your performance and why it can feel impossible to change, but it isn't. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. So firstly, I want you to cut yourself some slack, because a lot about learning to sing is about learning to do things the right way. So when we're in a lesson or when we're in practice, we're often tweaking things about the way that we approach it physically. You're showing your body how to deliver the notes more efficiently or change the tone color to more of what you had in mind, which is necessary. It's the way that we improve. It's the way that we build trust with our voice on a physical, technical level. But it does set us up for perfectionism. Right? It reiterates the need to get it right. And secondly, for most of the singers that I know who experience perfectionism, it didn't necessarily start with singing. So if you think, I don't know why I think this way, I don't know why I have these thoughts, I don't know why I have this experience, it doesn't necessarily need to be tied to singing specifically. So it could be that you were praised for having exceptional grades in school, or that you were always the well-behaved one or the talented one, or perhaps you were told off or embarrassed, humiliated when you made a mistake or when you failed. And those kinds of things leave a lasting imprint on your nervous system. So I really wanted to start this off by telling you it's not your fault. And there's nothing broken about you that needs fixing, okay? Your body just simply responds to mistakes or getting something wrong or the potential for failure as though it's a life or death situation, right? And that is something that you can shift. So try to relax your shoulders, take a deep breath, and stick with me. So why is it really important to shed this as a singer? Well, these obsessive thoughts you have about getting it right, this need to get it right, can often derail all the work that you've put into your technique or like honing your performance. Because you fear failing so much, your nervous system will then go into a fight, freeze, or flight mode, a flight response, and you'll veer off course. So you've probably experienced something like this. I 100% have. It might be that you forget the first line of a song. It could be that you start pushing way too hard. You notice that you're straining just to make sure that it's done in the right way or like it's supposed to sound. You might be holding back because you're worried that you might get it wrong. So here are a few ways I wanted to introduce you to that your perfectionism could be sabotaging your technique. And I wanted to share these because I had an experience on the weekend in my Powerhouse program, which is my live belting program, which really aligns with this. And it reminded me that we should talk about this more often. So there was this gorgeous singer who was having some difficulty with onsets. So she was putting harsh glottal onsets at the starts of these phrases, which feels like this little jab or this little push. And the previous week, we'd looked at onsets. We'd looked at tools and techniques that could smooth them out for her and teach her body how to deliver a clean onset, or what's also called a glide onset or simultaneous onset. And so we'd looked at that in the masterclass the previous week. And yet, this last weekend, they were still present. And something in my intuition went off. I was like, what if it's not about the technique here? What if it's that she's trying to get it right? It's that striving mentality, and that she's lacking trust in her voice. So I asked her, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking when you're approaching these phrases? And it was exactly what we've been talking about. It's just hit the note, just get it right. And it had this undercurrent belief that it was somehow hard for her, right? That she had to work hard in order to get it right. And so I spent a few minutes mentoring her. We worked through a couple of things, we discussed it, and we went a completely different route to using technical tools and approaches. And long story short, she kept landing clean onsets, and then she had a way to move forward, a different way of practicing that actually meant that it was happening far more regularly. So onsets is a big one for perfectionists, either trying to push them to hit the note to get it right. It could be hesitating because you're not sure if you're going to be able to land it in the right way. Also sliding up to the note, kind of ramping up to the note, is another way that you try to build in some safety before you have to go all the way up there to the hard ones. Another thing that I see with perfectionists is flicking a note into a different register. So what I mean by this is, if you have a note that you are wanting to do in a powerful quality or in a chesty quality, and you're just not sure that you can get it, sometimes you land it and sometimes you don't. Often in a performance situation, you'll then veer that off into a headier or lighter quality. And it might be a little bit shaky and a little bit unnatural, but the perfectionist in you is saying, yeah, but at least we hit the right note, because you might have been flat if you tried to do it chesty, you might have cracked, something awful might have happened, so it's too high a risk for that perfectionist part of you. And so it comes down again to a lack of trust. I also see perfectionist singers skipping unimportant notes. So if you have done a class with me and we've spoken about this, I'll often talk about feeding each of your children the same amount. So each note should get the same amount of presence. It doesn't have the same amount of power or volume. It can even have different qualities, but I can really hear when people are kind of half-assing these notes down here and then really trying to hit the big one. So it's really obvious, especially when you have a leap. You've got a lower note up to a higher note in the same phrase. And so perfectionists will tend to obsess over getting the big note or the challenging note or high note or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, right, that they'll completely black out from the rest of it. They're not present for the other notes. They're thinking further ahead. Or the other thing is that if they've made a mistake, you can tell that a perfectionist is not present when they're singing the next phrase, because they're often beating themselves up about the mistake that they made. Okay, so there's just a few ways that perfectionism and those obsessive thoughts that can go with it can sabotage your technique. And why I talk so much about your beliefs and your thoughts and your emotions and your nervous system is because so many singers are not devoting time and energy to this part. So they'll throw themselves into years of technique and then are devastated if the wheels fall off, in a performance, but they're not looking in the right direction to do something about it. Yeah. So some of the most impactful work that I do with singers is to unravel the thread of perfectionism within them. And I do it with them together. So we talk about where it came from, how it's influenced their lives, what beliefs they hold because of it, what they don't like to feel in their bodies, and gently help them to build a better story for themselves. So I do this with private clients and also in my Embody Your Voice program, which just reopened its doors yesterday. So I will add the link below if you are interested in checking it out. But one of the toxic traits of perfectionism that is almost hilarious is that you don't like having it, right? So I remember when I was struggling with perfectionism, I used to be so frustrated that I had it, that I would have that narrative. I would see perfectionism as a fault, something that was imperfect about me, something that I wanted to get rid of. And some of you might lump it in with what you would call your inner critic. Yeah. So one of the first things that I do with singers is reintroduce them to their inner critic. I get them to repair that relationship. Because really the inner critic is built of younger selves, younger versions of you who have experienced something and now have a belief about the world. Yeah. So we need to start connecting to these younger parts of you who were really afraid when they made a mistake, right? They might have worried that they were going to get in trouble. They might have worried that it meant that they weren't special anymore or weren't worthy or weren't loved. And now that part of you gets triggered in certain situations. So it now starts to micromanage everything. It gets hyper-focused on everything. And that's to make sure that that bad result that you had so many years ago doesn't happen again. So they think that they are protecting you. We see them as this horrible, nasty little voice. They think that they're protecting you from getting hurt, right? From being in an unsafe situation. So I call these parts of us our protectors. And we can have many different protectors, but in this video, we're just talking about the one who is linked with perfectionism. So the first thing is that we work on that relationship so that you are not shaming yourself for having these thoughts. We also work on building your capacity to hold and experience sensation in your body. Because when you feel anxious, or what you label as anxious, nervous, uncertain, it brings up sensations in your body that by default we tend to label as bad, or things that we shouldn't be feeling, or things that are not to be trusted. But when you can teach yourself how to feel safe experiencing a range of emotions and sensations, it opens a whole world of possibility up. Yeah. We also work on showing you the beauty in surrender. So surrender is not something that people who identify as perfectionists often feel, and they often don't think that it is a good thing. And so being able to access that in small doses and baby steps and feeling how good it can feel to trust your voice, seeing the beauty that comes out in it, being able to enjoy letting go. So again, it comes back to experiencing sensations in your body, in like enjoying being able to sing with emotion and having your authentic voice come to the table. So practicing being visible and being vulnerable in a new way. Yeah. Because the thing about trying to hit notes perfectly is that it's like wearing a suit of armor. So it protects you from being truly seen. And that's why it feels safer, right? But it's actually not satisfying. It doesn't feel creative. It doesn't feel artistic, and it's not really you. So I create experiences for singers to dip their toe in the water, to be able to feel like what it would be like to embrace imperfection, or even just the risk of imperfection, in order to access real expression. I remember having a conversation in a previous round of Embodying Your Voice, and I asked people what they wanted from their voice and who they wanted to be as a singer. And somebody said, I want to sing it perfectly and feel like it's authentic expression. And I giggled and I said, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing because those two things are mutually exclusive. You have to choose one because of this exact conversation that we're having. So it might sound perfect to somebody else when somebody is genuinely expressing themselves, but it's not hands on the wheel, directing it, micromanaging perfectionism. And the funny thing is that so much of the time when singers who have been micromanaging their voice and are trying to be perfect or accurate, when they let go of the wheel, they're actually more perfect or accurate because they're not trying so hard and because these narratives aren't veering them off course, just like what I was explaining earlier. So in Embody Your Voice, there's an opportunity in the last week where people can volunteer to be witnessed by others. And what everyone notices is when they watch somebody trade attempted perfection for truly expressing themselves, is that it's moving, right? That's what we want to sing for. That's the reason that we got into this, is to move ourselves and to move others. And one thing that I always reiterate in that group is that your voice is a gift for you first. And most perfectionists aren't present enough in their body or in the experience of the music. They don't give themselves that, right? Because they're just solely focused on getting it right. But they don't realize that. They don't remember that. And they're not able to enjoy themselves because it feels like it's a high pressure situation all of the time. My question to you is, what would it feel like if it wasn't? If you didn't feel like your self-worth is tied up in whether or not you hit that note right, whether or not you get through the whole gig without making a single mistake, if you could trust your voice and actually enjoy what came out. Because they're hypercritical perfectionists. Even when everybody else thinks it's beautiful, they've been listening. They can find the one little wobble that wasn't meant to be there, right? They don't enjoy what they've created. They can't feel proud of what they've created. So as I said, Embody Your Voice is a group container, and it spans 5 weeks where we move through this work together. And when I created this program, I knew it was something special. I hadn't seen anybody else attempt this kind of work before. It was all, technique training programs, but I knew this was really important. But even I was blown away by the transformations of the singers inside, and then also after that, as they continued to integrate the work that we waded into together. It's absolutely beyond. And you can actually read some of the testimonials on the page on my website too. So I'm very grateful to be able to facilitate this work. If you're feeling like now is the time to work on this neglected part, the mental and emotional part of you as a singer, here's my invitation. I would absolutely love to have you in there. So I will put the link under this video for you to explore. And please reach out if you have any questions. I'm always here. So I hope that this video was really valuable, that you feel seen first and foremost, and that you know the direction that you can go and the questions you can start asking, what you can start to explore and deepen into, to begin unraveling the perfectionism that's really been holding your voice hostage. It's been holding it captive, right? And it's been, as I said, veering it off, sabotaging your technique in a number of different ways. And likely a whole bunch of other things in your life. Because as I say, how you sing is how you live. It has ripple effects. And I want you to really think about the exciting life that lies ahead once you start to build a new story for yourself. So one that would involve curiosity and trust and self-worth that is solid. It's not dependent on whether you nail that or whether you get that right. Bringing play back into your world, an uninhibited expression. That is what I want for you. So let me know in the comments how this video resonated with you. If you have any reflections or any questions, pop them below. I would love to hear from you. And have a beautiful day. Take care.